Hello everyone, Volfey here. We have progressed over 3 bosses and now is the time for Azgalor. So today's Talk the Tactics. It will teach you how to deal with this 4-legged, 2 arms, 2 wings, big polearm having overgrown bat. It is a tough one, so let's go.
Abandon all hope. The Legion has returned to finish what was begun so many years ago. This time, there will be no escape!
Just like previous bosses, this one has 8 waves of 2nd and 3rd graders before he shows up, but about the trash waves a little bit later. Azgalor of course is a demon again, but don't get the stars in your eyes, cause there's a lot going on that doesn't allow you to sit in DPS like... First things first. Melee that hits actually hard, averaging about 8 to 8,500 on decently geared plate wearer. Some sources say that this boss cannot crush, but don't take it for granted. It's like with the cleave, always assume that boss or mob cleaves. Speaking about cleave, Azgalor does cleave normally, unlike Azragal, and damage is not split among players and NPCs, but rather up to 5 targets get hit for up to 10,000 sometimes. So it is in your best interest to stay out of his front belly. Now out of spell abilities, I'll start with Howl of Azgalor. It's pretty much 5-second silence. Straight up, but know that is a shadow spell and as such it can be resisted. It might seem like a pattern, but once again some shadow resistance items can help you resist it, especially as a healer since this isn't a DPS race. Due to this 5-second silence debuff, you have to have some HOTS on the tank in order for him or her to survive spikes, melee damage and possible cleave. Hooray druids once again, right? Rain of Fire, as the name suggests it, pretty much works as a normal Rain of Fire. You know, that AoE spell that warlocks never use. Beyond that AoE damage, Rain of Fire leaves a burning dot on affected players that spend 2 seconds inside of it, which deals additional 6000 damage over 5 seconds. It can be deadly if combined with Howl of Azgalor, especially for low HP clotty classes. Rain of Fire is casted on a target which can be player, NPC or even totem. If you're caught into it, run out ASAP and be ready to heal yourself if you can or use a health stone. Doom. Simple name, deadly result. Literally, every 50 seconds or so one random non-tank player in the raid will get debuffed with Doom, which lasts for 20 seconds. It is similar to Curse of Doom, but Azgalor will kill you and spawn Doomguard upon your death and you cannot escape it. Not even a paladin. You cannot resist it either. It is important to know that if you die before those 20 seconds, you will still spawn a Doomguard, so be careful with it. The Doomguard spawns has War Stomp and Cripple abilities. I'll talk about Doomguard's tactics and managing in a moment, but let's first go over tactics for the main boss. Main tanking rules. Tank the Azgalor close to Thrall's position, engaging Thrall as well, but make sure that Thrall and all other NPCs are standing behind the boss, cause cleave. This will require some kiting, spinning, turning, pirouetting, roasting.
Nice.
Next thing you have to worry about is Rain of Fire on you and melees. In order to evade it as much as possible, you will have to drag boss around following rule number 1. Try not to move chaotically, but rather familiarize yourself with a path and call out when you're about to spin the boss. The path on screen is my suggestion and how I used to do it. Feel free to copy it or come up with your own. Lastly, be ready to use defensive cooldowns to prevent death during silence. Raid rules. Melees don't get cleaved, and prioritize survival and running out of Rain of Fire over DPSing the boss. Healers try to keep everyone topped off and the main tank hotted to maximum before silence. Warlocks should stay in the middle area to be able to soulstone Doom targets, especially if they're healers or ranged DPS. Off-tank and off-tank healer need to stay on the other side of the camp near the Tauren warriors, where they won't be affected by Rain of Fire, ever. How to handle Doom. Doom target has 20 seconds to move behind off-tank and get near Tauren warriors in order to pull them as well. Since Azgalor is not a DPS fight, use them as help with Doomguards, and quite frankly it's funny to see them war stomping each other to death. As soon as the Doom target is affected, wait for raid leader's call to soulstone the player or not, set the rotation which warlock goes when. Also, shamans can ank and unsoulstoned casualties can be battle res by druids. Speaking of shamans, it is smarter to bloodlust sooner while everyone is alive, but care with your aggro of course. Raid composition must include geared main tank, either warrior or druid to tank the boss and off tank, preferably Tonkaden for lesser Doomguards, since he can hold aggro through stun and all. It is best to go with 2 rescue druids for hunting the boss tank. praise to bubble Rain of Fire players, and at least 3 warlocks for soulstones. But then again, this is Hyjal, not having 3 warlocks in raid is unheard of. Other useful random information I can throw at you is that Azgalor, much like Azragal, can be disarmed actually. It can boost tank survivability through silence a bunch. According to Wowhead, Cleave is the next melee attack that will be casted only if there is another entity next to the tank in front of the boss. So in theory, as long as there is no other player or NPC in front of the boss, he will never cleave. Some guilds used to do this boss the other way around. Tank Azgalor at Tauren warriors and have Thrall and off-tank deal with the Doomguards. But I find kiting easier around Thrall's position and his DPS as greater help. Other guilds, however, had their melees deal with the Doomguards as soon as they spawn, while range continue on the boss. It is an out of ordinary tactic, but useless. I suggest the original tactic I explained first. It takes 364 licks to get to the center of Tootsie Pop, but only 2 clicks to like and subscribe. On the scale from 1 to 5, I guess 4 is more appropriate for this one, due to a specific mechanic that kills players for sure, high Rain of Fire and melee damage, and of course the trash waves. Speaking of which, trash waves, which you can see on the screen right now, have 2 new mobs appearing in them. One of which is more of a nuisance than a threat, while the other one is hella dangerous. Fellstalkers deal some wet noodle melee damage, but will randomly drain your mana and deal half of it as a spell damage. Luckily, like any other mob, they are interruptible. On the other hand, giant infernals can hurt pretty much. They land from the sky, stun, and have an immolate aura which deals about 800 fire damage per tick. They can land anywhere in the camp pretty much, but expect them in these areas the most. In waves where you have infernals, move raid into the middle of the camp, or at least casters and ranged, with 1 tank. Warlocks can fear them and also can banish the Fellstalker, or even enslave it perhaps. However, I want to get your attention to wave number 6, aka the wipe wave. There are no infernals there, but there are a bunch of necromancers and banshees, which means that the tank will get bombarded by spells and can die in under a second. Treat this wave as a boss fight, I cannot stress it enough. Stun, sheep, CC, interrupt, spell reflect, or do whatever you can, just spread the damage on more than 1 tank. After you're done with the lizard, pick your first tier 6 pieces and talk to Thrall and then run to the entrance of the camp for surprise loot. Anyway, thanks for checking out my 4 out of 5 progression raid. We got Archie left for next time. Stay safe and have fun playing the game. I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.